I differentiate between two groups of mystics as a starting point, so to speak. It's too schematic again. There are those who are something like clairvoyants from the start and consider themselves to be super talented. I made that mistake at the beginning. They have the task of forming I, a properly defined I. And I always emphasize that they should go into the body, and I also lure them with promises. I'll give you exercises so that you can really have as much money as you want or something like that. They really should go into the body because they have never really incarnated, but they have, otherwise they wouldn't be there today. Unfortunately, the others are no longer there. A connection to above, but anything with bodies, from detailed dance moves or anything like that, yes, you can forget it. When they do sports, there's still a sense of escape and adrenaline release and stuff like that. So at some point you become such a yo-yo and worn out. And then there are, so to speak, these fat, solid cultural egos who think you're spinning higher perception and stuff like that. And an exercise like this is intended for them, especially now, to liquefy what they consider to be the only reality. I usually end up with people who are quite sensitive. And the disadvantage of the sensitive mystics, right from the start, i.e. Group 1, they are often a medium and at the mercy of their perception. And it can increase if they do something purely Chinese or high energy yoga or something else, because they can have great experiences and end up in the light. But if they continue to pump themselves full of light, they'll end up in really fat psychotic arrears, because it is in the shattered personality that has a mystical experience that partly experiences super pure light. And if she thinks I'm going to do more of it, she'll end up in a super clean hell, just as clean, because it's split off. And it doesn't feel good either. So this is a bit of background. I seem very relaxed and very spontaneous, but I'm still the highly differentiated compulsive one who has a big concept behind everything. But you just don't feel like writing books anymore so that you can understand it. So certain people don't need death of the ego. They should really form a distinct personality and have the experiences. I have space, I am space, and my boundaries are safe. And now I can't say that's great with Ilona, otherwise she'll feel praised. But for what I want to illustrate, I think that's where she said, I was with myself, I was in myself, and I was still with him. That's exactly what you need in order not to go crazy with mysticism, because it wasn't wiped out and dissolved into foreign energies. What Martina had described, I was leaning over to my mother and stuff, and couldn't feel myself anymore. I'll use the group metaphors here. If you're in the leaning over position, you can't control the energies. And it gets crazier and crazier the more sensitive you become. For me, that used to be really, really bad. I'm stuck in this total dissolution phase through mysticism for a quarter of a year. With Mantak Chia, I always had in the back of my mind breaking down boundaries and feeling into the reeds and the energy of the moon and learning to differentiate between everything and so on. Then there was the little energy cycle, and you were supposed to do internal alchemic work and all that great stuff. And yet this goal was, so to speak, with becoming one and dissolving boundaries. Many traumatized people want and love precisely such spiritualities that talk about breaking boundaries. And for me, the key was, when I came to be pure perception, but not control it. You're riding your bike and a mountain biker speeds past you in Berlin, you look after him, and suddenly you have his feelings. And what does that think in you? And then you look for, who is that here on my bike? Then I went to an Indian restaurant, sat down at the table, but actually no one was sitting at the table anymore. 2 women are talking at the table next door, and I can feel exactly how everyone is feeling. So everything is in me, but I'm no longer there. And if that doesn't stop, then you talk to your partner, feel what she wants, and ask yourself, did I have a will before? And it isn't there at all. So that's the background to why I nail everyone so hard in the basic seminar with the 3 basic exercises. This is your airbag, this is your personal protection from the start. Why it is so important, the foundation plate, and only on it the delimitation so that you can always control the floor yourself with the elevator button. which energy areas do you want to go to and who do you want to go back to? For me, it was extremely extreme, so that all the survival energies of Haas and fear of death were released again because I realized that I no longer exist. And as I said, I had great help in that. I then spoke to someone I knew on the phone, and that's not that rare. They were themselves. They were stuck in a phase like this for months. And later I also read books by other people who described how they never got out of there. It was as scary as if I were reading really bad crime novels about bad corpses. So when you realize that I am a psychological and mental corpse, I no longer exist. So in that sense, I'm not glorifying it when they just say you're just pure perception. And for me, that was the background where some things, I didn't want to go any further. So my spirit, what are you really like? And then nothing triggers, nothing accelerates, but first you actually have the fundamental experience. There is one inside and one outside, and I can commute. That's the difference between, I'll call it a mystic or a clairvoyant, and the other is a medium. The medium cannot direct or control its experiences. It's at their mercy, it drifts, and this can escalate to the horror of extinction. And I used to read a lot of books about Zen, and one even celebrated it, the death of the ego and extinction. These were almost more fascist formulations of how it was celebrated. It just creeped me out. And for me, this is in a Christian mysticism. I have called you by your name. And when Jesus always says ego, Amy, he doesn't need that at all. Because of Greek grammar, Amy is enough. That means I am. And now this ego, like you're saying I am or something. And I tell you, so demarcation, this is a preliminary theory in my mind. Unknowingly, just because I enjoy it, I'm always tinkering with huge systems and moving them around each other like a big marshalling yard. And my preliminary thesis is that personalization in Christianity happens through the energy of love. We are not a pure shamanic natural spirituality. One now merges with everything and is that all. And we are not Zen-like, so to speak, will and dissolution into consciousness. We are not Indian either, just nirvana. But Christianity is about everyone playfully managing their own avatar here, but also fully aware and keeping it in the playing field. And don't say, it's not so bad if I don't exist anymore and stuff like that. Because it's incredibly fast. Otherwise I would really call it such a spiritual fascist extinction.